excellent candidates from the Come Fair ticket with Roy Cooper and Justice Anita Earls, all the way down to our county commission seat, which is Jeremy Wise. We're looking forward to our upcoming election, and we want to give you a brief view to the candidates. Let me give you a little background on the way our forum's going to work. We've given each candidate 12 minutes to speak. They can use all of the time or part of the time. Then at the end of each segment of candidates, we will open the floor up for questions. Before we get started, take out your phones or your calendar. I want to give you two important dates coming up. February the 28th at 2 o'clock, we will be having our precinct organizational meetings. Those will be held in Ledger at the Mitchell County Board of Education conference room, the same place we did last year. That's February the 28th at 2 o'clock. The second date is March 28th at 2 o'clock, and it will be in this room, and we will be holding our county convention. So February 28th and March 28th. Put those dates in your calendar so we can hopefully see you again. That we'll get organized for the upcoming November election. We're going to start with the way we decided to do the congressional candidates was to take my ballot and reverse the order that appears on my ballot. And we will be starting with Dr. Richard Hudspeth, then Paul Maddox, and then Jamie Ager will complete our congressional candidate segment. Zelda Briarwood sends her regrets. She still works and has had a mandatory work meeting this Saturday, and she was unable to attend. And Lee Whipple had to cancel out yesterday, and both send their regrets and their support for Mitchell County Democrats. So, Dr. Webster, you're up.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. My name is Richard Hudspeth, and I'm a family physician. I just need a show of hands. Can the folks in the back hear me all right? Just making sure. There's a lot of noise up here, so yeah, just making sure. And I think they want us to stay here for the camera as well, but all right. So, I got into this race to defeat Chuck Edwards because he has failed us. He has failed us on Helene recovery. He has failed us on healthcare. He has failed us on affordability. And if that isn't enough, every day when you open up the news, it seems like we don't even recognize our country anymore. I've been working in Henderson County for over 2 decades now as a family doctor. For the last 10 years, I've been running Western North Carolina's largest community health center with centers in more than 9 counties across western rural North Carolina. I know Yancey and Mitchell, they have their own community health center, a sister program of ours that we've worked very closely with over the years. Blue Ridge Health, which is the health center I was at, has not been up in this area, but we participate with the Mountain Community Health Partnership up here. During my time and my tenure at Blue Ridge Health, we were able to more than basically quadruple our business. We more than tripled the number of patients who now have access to affordable health care to over 80,000 in Western North Carolina. We quadrupled the number of providers who are now providing care, and we quadrupled the number of employees to over 700 employees, creating hundreds and hundreds of good paying jobs across Western North Carolina. In addition to that, running that business, I led that organization for 10 years. It's a $77 million health center with, I said, 700 employees. I've learned how to balance budgets. I've learned how to inspire folks to serve on a mission of putting others first. I know after Helene, some of our darkest moments here in Western North Carolina, and I know this area was hit hard, but there are other areas, and we were able to take this organization that we had built up over the past 10 years and go to places, other hard-hit areas like in Barnardsville or down in Chimney Rock, and send our folks there, again, on that mission to serve. We also were able to send them to places like our community shelters for those that were most vulnerable after Helene. And we also sent them to places checking on wellness checks for our seniors to make sure they had enough medicine, food, and water after Helene. But that aspect of service to others didn't stop there, and it was through leadership. So not only were we working here at home, but I also went abroad. I went to West Africa during the Ebola epidemic, one of the few physicians, if not the only physician from Western North Carolina to go there to stop that before it came here. And that's the level of service that I've led through for our health center. Since we have a bit of time, I also want to tell you a little bit about my background. I'm assuming that when we get to the questions, we'll get to the policy things, because I love to talk about healthcare and I love to talk about all the things going on in this country, but I'm going to make the assumption that we're going to hit on some of those things this afternoon. So I grew up in Chicago, and I know that I'm not from here originally, but I did choose to come here. And I sort of feel like if the Catholic Church can pick a guy from Chicago to be Pope, Western North Carolina consider a guy from Chicago to be their next congressman. But I grew up in a lower income household. My dad had a lot of different jobs. My mother had 2 cancers at a young age, and one eventually she succumbed to. We had a roof over our head. We had food on the table, but not much else. Never really took vacations. And I started working hard from day, I was probably about 8 or 10. And back then it was delivering newspapers, right? So I'd get up every morning, rain or shine, didn't matter, going out delivering newspapers, never had a family vacation. By the time there was a lot of love in the home, but my parents, they both died paupers. There was no transfer of generational wealth from them to me. By the time I got to school, and I moved down here in the early 80s and came here, loved it, came here to go to school, I was on my own. I paid for my undergraduate either through loans or hard work. And I worked 20 to 40 hours a week, at least, trying to put myself through school. And I worked at a fancy hotel restaurant in Research Triangle Park. It was in the business area there. And I remember the afternoon that I graduated, I went and I worked that evening. And we worked in partnerships, and my partner who was helping us wait tables that evening told everybody that I graduated that afternoon, and here I am waiting tables. Now, I have to admit, I was a little sheepish about it. It felt a little uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, at the end of the night, when we counted up our tips, I was glad that he told everybody that I had just graduated. After graduation, I went overseas. And I graduated studying economics in 2 languages, Russian and Chinese. I went overseas and I had a completely different experience. I volunteered my time at Mother Teresa's Home for the Destitute and the Dying. And it was there I met a young man who wasn't really much older than myself. And he died needlessly from tuberculosis because of his poverty and lack of access to health care. And before he died, he had asked me to shave his head, which I thought was unusual. But what I learned later was that act was really a symbolic act of purification for him as he made his way from this life to the next life. But really, it was him asking me to give him just a few moments of dignity in a life that had given him very little, which I was happy to do, but it had a profound impact. And that's when I decided that I was going to come back and I wanted to dedicate my life to service of others and be a physician. And that's exactly what I did. Came back, went to Chapel Hill for medical school, and eventually found my way after residency to Western North Carolina. I will also tell you, during my time in medical school, one of the reasons that I'm in rural health is because of this place right here. I did a medical school rotation at the Bakersville Community Health Center, which is now Mountain Community Health Partners, for 6 weeks with Dr. Cade. That is what started my journey in rural health in North Carolina, right here. So I came back to come to medical school, and as I said, I ended up running this health center, which was super important to the people of Western North Carolina. Not only have we done things, with Hurricane Helene, but we've also managed to grow that business. We do not only primary care, but behavioral health. We have pharmacies. We have service delivery for pharmaceuticals. We do dental health. All of those things we built together over the last 10 years as I was running that health center. So when we look at things like Chuck Edwards, who has done everything possible to limit people's access to health care. He delayed Medicaid expansion for over 10 years. He cut $50 billion from health care in rural North Carolina. Too much so that even Tom Tillis said, "This is too much. I'm out because I'm not going to vote as you cut $50 billion from health care." While he's been doing that, we've been doing everything we can in order to expand access to health care. You're going to learn later, I imagine there's going to be a question on health care. And if there isn't, I'm going to throw it in anyway. But, I definitely believe that the time is now. We have a singular opportunity to get health care for everyone in this country. Right now, we spend over $5 trillion on health care, and that's more than twice what other countries do. We have enough money. We don't need to tax more in order to get health care for everyone. We have an increasing uninsured population of 25 million and growing. And I will tell you, 4 days ago, my daughter texted me in our little family group chat, and she said, "Wish me luck. I'm officially uninsured because I cannot afford health care without those ACA subsidies." They were going to charge her $8,000 for the year plus another $10,000 to $12,000 deductible. She's like, "Why am I paying $20,000 just to protect myself for what?" She hardly ever uses health care. Folks, we can do better. And the way we're going to win this election against Chuck Edwards is to show his way of limiting access is not what people in North Carolina and Western North Carolina need or want. And we can do better than what Chuck Edwards has given us. We have seen him have a seat on the powerful Appropriations Committee in order to be friends and have a powerful position to get us Helene recovery money. We have seen very little of that Helene recovery money, about 10%. It's likely we have a great opportunity with him in the House and Trump owning everything in the executive branch, and yet we have seen very little. It is time we get new representation in Congress in order to represent Western North Carolina for us to get the things that are going to help us live better lives. Now, we can do that. We can look at our past to help us figure that out. Whether it's a past legacy or whether it's looking at the old way, the tired old blue dog Democrat, we can look boldly at who the new leadership is for us to move this country forward, to make sure that this state is better, our country is better, and we have a brighter tomorrow. I'm Richard Hudspeth, and I ask and need your support, and I ask for your vote. Thank you all for being here, and I look for the question and answer. So I'm cutting my time short so we have more time to answer your questions. Thank you all very much.
You ready, Eddie?
Go ahead.
I'm Paul Maddox. I'm from over in Yancey County, and the last time I was here, I was at a function last summer at Perry and Ann's house, and had a wonderful time. And why don't we do it at their house again, Eddie? Come on now. Got better acoustics over there. I'm a local boy. My mom and my mom's family's been in the South Toe region near Locust Creek since around 1800. And I grew up in Nashville. My father was a family physician, Vietnam vet. I left in 1991, graduated from Inca High in Buncombe County, and I went to UNC Chapel Hill, where I got my Bachelor of Science and fell in love with research. I went on to get my PhD at Chapel Hill, and for the last 30-ish years, I've been trying to understand cell division. Cell division is the root cause of all cancers, and cancer is one of these things that it'll touch each and every one of us in one way or another, and it took my father's life. It will affect you, I promise, if it hasn't already. now, cancer doesn't care if you're black or white, or if you're a hillbilly like me, or if who you voted for, and so we all need a shot, and so right now there's a cancer in Washington. There's the acoustics got just a lot better there.
All right.
So there's a cancer in Washington, and the government ain't functioning like it's supposed to. It's supposed to be 3 equal branches, and right now, basically, we got one. And you make a stool with one leg, and it's going to fall over pretty quickly. So we need to fix this, and the way to fix that is by for Western North Carolina to stand up and fight for itself, and send a Democrat to Congress. Now, I'm an independent Democrat. I'm just, if you ask people up here in the hills, you know very well that people are very independent-minded up here. And my neighbor who got stuck in the mud the other day and I helped out, he's as hillbilly as he comes, and sometimes I can't even understand what he's saying. He uses words that I don't even know they're words. But he says, well, that Trump never said, he's every word out of his mouth's a lie. And if you just sort of pigeonholed him, you would think that there's no way he'll vote Democrat. Well, if we go out and talk to these people, we can win this. And this is how we win this seat, is by talking to people and making them feel heard. And I've served as a professor for 20 years, however long it's been, and I've given my heart and soul to understanding cancer, and to try to make things better for people, and also to educate our future scientists. And maybe one of your kids are neighbors' kids, and they probably got an A if they were in my class, and so I'm now ready to serve Western North Carolina in a different way. And I'm not a politician. I didn't, my mom's a 4th grade teacher, and everybody, 4th grade, you learn North Carolina history, right? And so as the crocuses are peeking up and around our house, I suppose they are around where you are. And my brother's planting his first seeds today. And, you can sort of feel the dogwoods coming on, and just the energy that spring brings with it. And that's the kind of energy we need to win back Congress. Now, like I said, I'm not a politician, but I know how to ask questions and get answers. That's what research is. It's identifying a problem and then figuring out the best way to solve that problem. And if I can't solve it, if I don't understand something about healthcare, I can find an expert who knows exactly about healthcare, and I can bring people together and build a team of people to solve problems. And that might be knocking on the door of a Republican, and that's okay, right? We need to solve problems, not win politics. So I'm going to cut it short. I'd be happy to talk to you anytime if you can find me on South Toe River. But you can also reach out to me on my website, maddoxforcongress.com. And I'm itching to talk to you, each and every one of you, and answer any questions you might have. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. Go ahead, Eddie. Is this the time? Okay, ready, Eddie. I like that, Paul. That was good. I'm Jamie Ager. I'm from over in Fairview. Fairview, and I'm in this race because I know that we can beat Chuck Edwards in this next election, and I'm super excited to go help do it. My family's been in this region for. My kids are the 5th generation at our family farm, Hickory Nut Gap Farm, over in Fairview, North Carolina. We've been, I'm 4th generation over there, And my great-grandparents moved here back in 1916. So my great-grandfather was a Presbyterian minister, and he would travel all over western North Carolina, and he would preach every Sunday at different churches all over the mountains here, and started a farmers cooperative called the Farmers Federation. And the Farmers Federation was sort of dedicated to bringing economic opportunity for rural communities all over these mountains. Back in 1916, western North Carolina was still in the sort of economic doldrums of the post-Civil War South. And I think today we're still in the sort of economic doldrums of post-Helene activity here in western North Carolina right now. But, you know, that legacy of service and that legacy of being helpful to the community has been integral to my childhood. It's been baked into me ever since I was a kid. And when they asked me to think about running for Congress, I said, I think this might be the moment. And it was good timing, to be honest. We have my wife Amy's here too. She's a good representative for me, and my better half, obviously. And she, you know, when we came from the family farm where I grew up, we had a dairy, like a lot of small farms all over the mountains here. Our dairy was not doing great, like a lot of small dairies in the sort of get bigger, get out agriculture history. And so when Amy and I went to Warren Wilson College in Swannanoa, we graduated and studied environmental studies. And we're kind of young, and we were idealistic about coming back to the family farm and selling pasture-raised, grass-fed beef, pasture-raised meats. And I'm proud to say that now we're in our late 40s, we've raised 3 boys, and we're still fired up and idealistic about changing the food system and make agriculture better for everybody. And we're still in business, most importantly. And as part of that journey, we built our farming operation up. We also realized that if you're in the food business, it's a little bit different than just agriculture. And so we started working with farmers all over the region to build a supply chain of grass-fed beef, and really sort of built out a farm store as well. So if you're ever in Fairview, come by our little farm store where we sell our beef and our pork and our chicken and stuff like that. And today, Hickory Nut Gap is a multifaceted organization. We have about 25 employees. And that's really been a hard entrepreneurial journey for us. We've had many sleepless nights trying to figure out how to cash flow the business. We understand the challenges of growing a small business, of being in a community of small businesses, you know, selling to a lot of the Asheville restaurants and stuff like that, and having relationships with folks all over those places. So in some ways, my entire life has been straddling the sort of 2 different worlds of like urban versus rural North Carolina. And that's been very, and I feel like the gap keeps getting wider and wider and wider the older I get. But somehow we keep being successful in building these relationships. And I've got deep relationships with folks in the mountains, all over the mountains. I was actually just walking in right here, and some folks that I know through my Farm Bureau connections, Harley and Nicole Masters, were loading some sheep. So I just helped them load up their panels and get it all organized for them. And I'd met them just a month ago at the Farm Bureau convention. So that was fun to see them. And they have a little meat shop here. And so they asked me to come by so we can help them, because I'm like, it's a hard business. Let me help. I know how hard this can be. But as we look at this campaign, as we look at 2026, and we look at the chance to take over this seat and beat Chuck Edwards, I'm just super excited, because I feel like my experience in both worlds of rural and urban worlds, in agriculture and in the business community in Asheville and Henderson County in western North Carolina, really gives me the ability to kind of speak to a lot of communities. I always say my job is to go find those 10 to 15% of reasonable Republicans and unaffiliated voters, because we can go get those folks because they're sick and tired of Chuck Edwards and his inability to stand up for what we need in this region of western North Carolina. You know, on September 27th, 2024, we got hit with the biggest event of my entire lifetime. If you asked me 2 years ago if we got mudslides in western North Carolina, I would have said, no, we don't really have mudslides. Right now, there's like 8 big mudslides on the farm right there at home. This thing rocked our worlds, and I feel like everywhere. Yesterday, I went down to my friend Nick, who's got a little lawnmower repair business, and I needed to borrow a little drill bit because I was putting some signs up on the side of the road with my son Levi. And I went back to drop it back off, and I was asking him how he was doing. He's like, all this crap here is left over from Helene. This is all just a mess. And I'm like, we're still all just processing Helene here a year and a half later. And the cost of Helene was about $60 billion. And so far, the federal government's given us less than 15% of that money to come back to our region. And to me, that is totally unacceptable. We had politicians, Chuck Edwards, Donald Trump, and Swannanoa, celebrating that they were going to make this region whole. It was going to be no problem. And now we're still waiting 18 months later for this money to come back in. And if there's one job for a representative for Western North Carolina, it's to go find the money for your region when you have a natural disaster. And to me, that's inexcusable, and we're going to hold him accountable for that over and over and over again over the next 8 months. So I'm really excited about that. The other issues we're going to focus on in this campaign, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of this stuff, is this question about the high cost of living. It's terrifically expensive for people to live. Over and over again, you hear about the fact I was in Jackson County, and to afford a starter home for a family, they say you need to be making $150,000 a year to be able to afford a starter home. That's crazy for so many young families and so many working families in our regions. It just doesn't work, right? Healthcare, with the big, beautiful bill for billionaires, all the Medicaid cuts puts a lot of our rural hospitals and the infrastructure for the medical establishment at jeopardy. We need to be bolstering our rural hospitals and our rural healthcare infrastructure, not taking it away and causing more and more. It's terrible to hear about Richard's daughter who's choosing not to get insurance. Like under this administration, we're heading in the wrong direction, having fewer people insured and having a healthcare system that's going in the wrong direction as far as care goes. I got a friend in Fairview. He was a Traco operator. He was cleaning up a lot of the Craigtown community. They lost 13 lives in our community. And he had a stomach ache, didn't go to the doctor, he didn't have insurance. 6 months later, he died due to stomach cancer. Just never went because he didn't have insurance. It's just heartbreaking to hear these stories, and we know these stories are happening everywhere we go. And to me, the premiums that we saw jump in January, 300% for some people, probably why your daughter doesn't have insurance. We see so many people going off of insurance, or it's killing their ability to do it. So to pay for a house, to pay for housing, to pay for rent, to pay for your mortgage, to pay for your health care, to pay for the utilities. Utilities have gone up 41% in the last 5 years. We've seen childcare is crazy expensive. Amy and I have 3 boys. Luckily, they're done with childcare. And for some reason, even 20 years ago or whatever, when they were in childcare, we were always like, once we get through these childcare years, we're going to have all kinds of money because childcare is so expensive. And guess what? It's even way more expensive nowadays. And so we've got to have systems like Michigan's got a program called KidRx that can help reduce the cost of childcare. There's different states with different models on how we improve our childcare infrastructure in this country. To me, that is a huge issue. And as the father of 3 boys, one of the main reasons I decided to run for this race is those boys I love deeply. Our son Nolan, we took yesterday, and he to vote for the first time, so that was fun. And I think he voted for me. I'm not totally sure. And but their ability to feel hopeful about the future, for young people to feel hopeful about the future, is just such an important thing. And when they don't feel hopeful about the future, they start looking at the government and being like, something feels rigged about our government. And then they look, and then they see what's going on, and then they're like, oh, it totally is rigged. So it feels like the system is totally rigged. We've got to ban stock trading for members of Congress. That's an easy, low-hanging fruit, very popular. Some type of term limit situation where people aren't going to stay in Congress till they're no longer able to understand what their constituents need. We need some type of system and accountability for this baloney around Jeffrey Epstein and all this. It just smells like total rot up there. And if people don't think the government's working for them, then they start to mistrust the government. And then we end up having an administration that's the most crooked administration in the history of our country. And so to me, what we need is leaders who care about their communities. And really, when I run this campaign, I think of my role in this job as a representative of Western North Carolina as my primary activity. I don't care which political party you're from. I don't care which job you're in. My job is to represent the interests of the people here in Western North Carolina, primarily. If I know anything about people in Western North Carolina, it's that we're an independent-minded bunch, and we don't like taking orders from Washington, D.C. or anywhere else. And we need to make sure that we have a representative who will advocate for the people of this region in every way possible. And that's what I intend to do. And I think part of being a good leader, and this is going back to the Helene section where Chuck Edwards failed us, is showing up in the community, even when it's hard. You know, there was a town hall last spring. Chuck Edwards showed up. Everybody yelled at him, and since then he hasn't showed up at all. He brings his little his car around and then just meets with people, but he's never there. It's one of his staff people, and he's hidden behind teletown halls and social media, basically. So it's just totally irresponsible. And as a representative, I give you my word that I will show up in the community. I will show up in Swannanoa, not to have a press conference with the president, but to help show love and empathy for this community that just went through so much trouble. And to me, we don't need more money in Greenland. We need more money in Newland. And that's the work we've got to do right here in these mountains. And so I really want to run a people over politics, a place over politics kind of campaign. I love Western North Carolina. I'm a child of Western North Carolina. This place is near and dear to my heart. And I feel so lucky to be in this role of even running for Congress, because I get to travel around and meet all the wonderful people of this region. And I just really look forward to needing your help and earning your support to beat Chuck Edwards next November. So thank y'all so much. I'll look forward to the questions.
Was I right? Don't we have a great set of candidates? Let's give them a hand. The way our question and answer is going to work, when you stand to ask your question, let me turn this alarm off. Okay, there we go. When you stand up to ask your question, give your name, and if you're from Mitchell County, give your precinct as well, because it'd be interesting to see what sort of precinct breakdown we have. But your name and precinct. Let me start off taking the prerogative of the chair. I have a two-part question. If you're elected in November, what congressional committees do you intend to ask to serve on? And second, if you don't survive the Democratic primary, how will you help the candidate that does get through the general election? You can take whatever order you want.
So I'll take it in temporal order. If I'm not elected in the primary, I'm going to do everything I can to flip this seat. I'm not here to represent Paul Maddox. I'm here to represent you all, and I believe in my heart that this is a race about winning this seat. It's not about having the first ever federal representative from Yancey County. To my knowledge, I could be wrong. Landon's here, or Miss Hunt's here. She knows everything about politics. It's about winning this seat, and so I will do everything in my power to make that happen. If I have the honor to represent us in the November election, which I hope to, I will, when I win, I will ask to be on oversight, number one, and appropriations, number two, where Chuck already sits. Oversight is really important to me personally because my research grants were cut last spring for reasons which are never been made clear to me. And you know what that's called? That's called oversight, asking a question and getting an answer, right? So how is that making the American people better by cutting research for cancer research, research funds for cancer research? How's it making America a better place to get rid of the Department of Education? You know, I mean, how does it make America better to sell off public lands for use for who knows what? Make money. Well, there you go. Make money for the very few, right? And so why aren't we taxing people to the, like the billionaires, and we can get billionaires to help pay to fill in this recovery act or Helene recovery. I'm almost blind to it. You probably are too. Since you see it every day, right? But when you go someplace just a little different, right? When I came over here to Bakersville today, I see a different part. I see the North Toe. I see the South Toe every day, but when I see the North Toe, and I was like, damn, that is something. That is some mess right there, and we need we need help, and we need somebody to get in there and to stamp their feet, jump up and down, and get some answers, and that's what oversight is.
Candidates, even the two that aren't here, have been doing this long enough, and we've been asked this question, are you going to support? And our number one goal, all of us, we've always said, is to defeat Chuck Edwards in November. So no matter who wins, we're all in. Whatever that candidate needs, we want to help, because that's our number one goal. That's what we need to do. We need to flip NC-11, and we need to flip Congress, get Roy Cooper elected into the Senate, and make sure we have a good place to get started here for the things that we need to do. The committees, I think it's a perfectly appropriate place to have someone from Western North Carolina take a seat on that appropriations committee. That is the place where we're going to actually do our best to get Helene recovery. So that is an important position. And again, if we can, get control of Congress, we can actually put stuff on the desk of Donald Trump, other than his executive orders that he's signing, to actually get things done. We have to think carefully about how we want to get that money and what we can use it on. So I think, for example, we all know we have a housing crisis, an affordability crisis. We need to use some of those Helene recovery dollars strategically in order for us to build affordable housing in Western North Carolina, whether it's in Asheville or Haywood or up here in Yancey Mitchell. But we need local control. We need local control over those dollars. The federal government shouldn't be deciding how we need to spend it. They should be helping us. Here is your grant, here is your loan, whatever that may be, and you all need to decide how to get this done. Number two, I'm a family physician, and I think our time is now singular. We have never been in a moment like this, really almost a perfect storm, to help us get a national universal healthcare program in this country once and for all. So if I can sit on the Health and Human Services Committee, that's what I need to do, because we need to fix this healthcare program. As you heard me say, we're already spending twice as much money on healthcare in this country than what other comparable wealthy countries do. We're spending $5 trillion, and so that means we're spending $2.5 trillion over what we knew. And yet we still have 25 million people uninsured. We have a way to fix that. I believe that the avenue forward for us is a Medicare for All program. And it's a 20%. Healthcare in this country is 20% of our GDP. We have to tackle this appropriately. You can't just blow it up, 20% of our GDP. When we get a national health plan, so for example, allowing, rather than giving, our kids, our 26 to 31-year-olds who are really struggling getting health insurance, like my daughter, like her friends, like all of the folks that I know, are really struggling because they're putting 2 or 3 jobs together. None of them pay for health insurance, and then they get a subsidy, which is important. Don't get me wrong. But it is a Band-Aid. It is a Band-Aid on a system that is hemorrhaging. We need to fix that problem. And to allow them to get into Medicare for All will allow us to actually control our costs. The second piece about my platform around healthcare, and it's online at richardhudspethforcongress.com, is around primary care. I'm a family doc. I know we have a few family docs in the audience here today. The other piece that these other wealthy countries do that spend less than us, they invest in primary care. Right now in the United States, our investment in primary care is going like this. We are less than 5%. These other countries spend 15% of their total bill on primary care. Primary care is really the only thing that has been proven around the globe to cut costs and improve outcomes. That's it. We need to reinvest in primary care. So, when you want to see a family doctor, how easy is that for you to get an appointment to see your doctor? We need more primary care in this country in order to fix our healthcare system. That's the reform part of this. There are 30 states already involved in doing that. Different states from Massachusetts to Oklahoma, from Virginia to West Virginia. They are all convinced, red and blue states, Republicans and Democrats alike, that this is an aspect that we need to do. I believe, again, that this time is critical for us to get universal health care in this country covered, because we're seeing folks like Tom Tillis say, we need to fix the system. We don't need to do this. ACA subsidies are important, but again, it's not the end all, the beat all. We need something better, and I'm ready to help deliver that in Congress if I'm honored with your vote. Thank you so much.
So we all went backwards, I guess. Yes, let's go beat Chuck Edwards in November. I guarantee to help you. And in the context, the question that you asked, Eddie, and thanks for hosting this, by the way, Eddie. I know it's a ton of work for all these volunteers and all these people that put these things together. So really grateful for all y'all to do that. Yes, let's go beat Chuck Edwards. And I'll be generous and ask how to do it if the question comes up, because I think that's the best way to be helpful. In the question about what committees to be on, I do think appropriations is obviously the big one in the context that we need Hurricane Helene money and funding, and darn it, where is that money? And being relentless about going to get that money and making sure that we've got it. And I think I'll add on to that I'll make a deal with whoever wants to be the Speaker of the House that I want a bill in the first 2 or 3 weeks providing money for Hurricane Helene funding right out the gate to make sure we guarantee we get that out of the Democratic leadership once we have the Democratic leadership in the U.S. House of Representatives, and working with Roy Cooper and everybody else in that process as well. Also, natural resources. We have tons of national forests around here. I think that we do need some good leadership that really represents us. There's been movements in the country to sell off pieces of our national forest and our national parks, which is totally unacceptable. We need to protect our public lands. And so to me, that's a role I could help play on that in that way as well. And then, the human services, the health and human service opportunity is to help bring down costs for working families and everybody else in these communities. I mean, this has to be our number one priority: housing, healthcare, utilities, all the things that are making it so hard for families to get by every single day. And if people can't get by and pay their bills, not a whole lot of other stuff matters much. And so to me, that's just really a prime focus of what I would do when I get to Congress.
Thanks so much. Senator Hunt, I believe you have some questions.
I'm Wanda H. Hunt. I'm a native of Mitchell County. I'm a former NC State Senator, and I am from the Grassy Creek Precinct in Spruce Pine. I have an unusual question for all three of you, and I would appreciate your addressing. You have addressed almost every issue that I am gung-ho on, and I have just resigned as a precinct judge to work for the Democratic candidates. Okay, the private prison industry stocks have rebounded since Trump's election in 2016. The ICE cruel and inhumane treatments are profiting off of that current issue. And it is our tax dollars that pay for them due to the unprecedented votes, growth opportunities, and demands of these moments that we are now in. Do you think Stephen Miller and Donald Trump are reaping the rewards since the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill, which has so many flaws in it? What would you do when more states outsource for profits for these occupied cells that Trump and Miller are profiting off through stocks? And what about congressional members buying those stocks? Thank you.
Jamie, let's start with you and work down this way. And we'll limit these answers to 2 minutes per candidate.
Thank you for your question. This is the whole privatization of not only prisons, but also the military and subcontractors and all those things is a huge issue. And to me, we need to have a government that can do these jobs if we need to have people doing this. There was a lot in your question, so I'm going to try to get to everything. What we've seen from ICE in the past 8 months has been painful to watch, sad to watch, devastating to think that we have masked agents in unmarked cars roving the streets of our cities. Think about how easy it is to act like you're an ICE agent when you don't even have a badge. You don't have to show it. The ability for the government to have the authority to do anything gets extremely diminished when we have ICE agents acting the way they do. It needs to be, Kristi Noem needs to be gone away and impeached, get rid of somehow. We need much higher accountability. It's Congress's job to provide oversight to all this stuff. And to me, that's a major talking point when we run against Chuck Edwards next 8 months, is where has Chuck Edwards been providing oversight for all this stuff? As far as stock trading for members of Congress, we need to ban stock trading for members of Congress. We need to have clear oversight and accountability on all these things once we get some better leadership in this country. And I think it just adds to the rot and the stink that so many people feel frustrated about our government right now. And to me, it's good leaders who care about our country, who are earnest, who are trying to get things right. Those are the leaders we need to elect, and we need to get rid of all the people that don't do that. So, and thanks for your service. I know it's a lot. I'm learning that it's a lot, and I appreciate you.
Thank you for the question, Senator. Inside stock trading has been going on for a long, long time, and it should be an obvious thing that should not be allowed, right? That's something that has to stop right away, and then the issue with ICE, we have to be a little careful on that because DHS also funds FEMA, and so if we cut all DHS funds, we're cutting FEMA funds, and so we don't want to just kill DHS because we're shooting ourselves in the foot then, or in the pocketbook. So we need to be, focused on what the real problem is, right? So the real problem is ICE, and so let's be careful about saying get rid of DHS. We need to get rid of ICE, and this is it's unconstitutional what's going on, and this is an oversight problem. Just like Jamie pointed out. And I've said, and I mean it's like, ask a question. Ask a question. Why are you able to, why should you be able to get away with this? You shouldn't. And so this is Chuck Edwards has done nothing to ask questions and to get answers. And he's sort of like, I call him a lump of coal, right? He doesn't really do anything. I think this is a moment in time where we have to be doers and take command and control of our own destiny. And Chuck Edwards certainly isn't doing that for us. Did I answer your question? Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hunt. Lot to unpack. First off, the level of corruption in this administration is beyond what we've ever seen in the United States, and it needs to come to a stop. It's not about exposure. It's exposed. We need Congress to step up and do its constitutional authority and responsibility to hold people accountable. When we're talking about privatization of a social service agency, It is the wrong way to go. People are definitely, whether it's Stephen Miller or anyone else in this administration, are making money off the privatization of these things. We have an obligation for some of our social services, like in healthcare. You know, that community health center model is a private-public nonprofit partnership that runs our social services. We've seen what for-profit privatization can do to our healthcare system in Western North Carolina when they sold Mission Hospital years ago. We know what privatization can do and undo for the people here in North Carolina. The second piece is holding people accountable and ICE. It is beyond our ability to walk back what ICE has done. We need to be done with it. Weeks and weeks ago, we were the first out there to call for Kristi Noem's impeachment, not only around ICE, but also she failed us on Helene recovery. People need to be held accountable, and that's Congress's authority and appropriate action to take. When we do these things, hold people accountable, make sure that our privatization doesn't happen in these social service areas, we're going to get better government. The last thing I want to say also is that what leads us to some of these more people in prison is our lack of investment in our young people around education and skills. And those are the things that we need to reinvest instead of building more prisons and more expensive prisons. Thank you so much.
Next question. Yes, go ahead.
Stand up.
Yes, sir.
It's a good idea. Dale Humphrey, Grassy Creek, responding. First, I got two questions. The first one's easy, and it's for 1 year. The trip or Sun-Times?
What's that? Oh, the Trigger of the Sun-Times? Which one did I read?
Deliver.
Which one did I deliver? The Tribune.
It's a Chicago question. I lived there for 30 years, so. But the important question is, I think you all know Buncombe County is probably pretty easy to carry this bill. What kind of numbers do you need to supplement that vote? What kind of numbers do you need out of Mitchell, Avery, and Yancey? You know the numbers that you need and how do you get them?
Paul, we'll start with you and then go to Jamie and then Richard.
Okay, so the question was,
What?
I'll repeat the question.
Okay.
And you correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. Okay. The question was, the question was, how do we carry the outlying counties, not just Buncombe County, and so what are the numbers we need, and how do we get those numbers, right? And so Mitchell is a good example. Since we're in Mitchell, I'll use that. The plurality of voters in Mitchell are registered unaffiliated, and so that means that there's 3 different registrations. The most number is unaffiliated. The next is Republican. The next is Democrat. And so if we, I don't know the points off the top of my head, but we don't have to win these counties outright. But what we need to do is get 50% of those unaffiliated people. If we get 50%, or if the other side stays home, then we can chip away big amounts to win the district. And the way we do that, in my opinion, is to meet people in the middle, and to find a place where we can build a coalition of independent-minded people. And so, I've told this story before. If we have a normal distribution of people, I'm a scientist. I'm going to speak a little science here. Then I'm 1 standard deviation over here, right? And then, but my cousin, he's over here, right? And so my wife, she's way over here. She's also an Amy. I think it's a commonality. And your wife's a Sally, so it's in there somewhere. Anyway, we need to get these people here in the middle. My cousin's right here. He and I agree on almost everything except for a few things. Like he likes to fish and hunt. This is a place where we can the environment and protecting our environment is a place where we can get people who are over here a little bit. It's not that hard. We have to talk to them though. We have to make them feel listened to, and not just like you're a crazy Trump voter, right? Which a lot of them might be, but that's it's a live and let live situation.
So this is a big reason why I decided to run for this campaign, because I have so many relationships all throughout Western North Carolina in rural communities and in the business community. And people often know me not as a Democrat, but as Jamie Ager, a farmer, a business owner, and a reliable community member. And that's really how I prefer people to notice me when I show up in my communities. I'm a basketball coach. I really have a firm belief that citizenship means that we're good friends with people we disagree with, and I've got a lot of friends all over these places. And Amy and I were over in Andrews for an event early on in the campaign, and we came back through my friend in Bryson City. Darnell Farms are some friends of ours, and Nate Darnell was up on the stage playing the banjo he was playing the bass. His dad was playing the banjo, and I was just standing in the back. And I've known Nate for a long time because I ag stuff. And he said he was up in front of about 100 people were there. And he said, "I'm not a Democrat, but there's the next member of our Congress back there, and I'm gonna vote for him, and you should too." And so that to me just kind of reminded me that there's so many folks out in the rural parts of Western North Carolina that I can connect to, I can go to. I admire. I don't think anybody's got a monopoly on all the good ideas. I think listening to people, learning, the more you know, the more you don't know. And to me, going out, listening to people, learning what's on people's minds. I've spent a lot of time. I went to the Yancey County Soil and Water meeting about 2 months ago and visited with all those folks. I'm going to show up in rural communities all over Western North Carolina. To me, it's about 10-point difference. We need to get about 29, to be specific on the numbers. We need about 29,000 votes to flip, and I think that's going to be totally doable in this coming election as we take the rural counties. Like Paul said, we might not win them, but we're going to put a big dent in the Delta, and then we got to win Buncombe like it's never been won before, and that's what I tell my people in Buncombe County. So I know people everywhere. I'm really confident we're going to beat Chuck Edwards in November, and I really look forward to having y'all's support to help me go do it.
Couple of parts of that question, and you've heard some of the statistics. The largest voting bloc is unaffiliated. But also, it's important to understand that in North Carolina's history, this is the first time that Republicans have more registered Republicans than Democrats have, right? We have lost some of our Democratic base. So it's much more important for us to get that unaffiliated vote out. And to me, what we need to do to get them is to give them a reason to vote for us. It's not to say Trump's bad or they're doing terrible, although we can certainly use Chuck Edwards as an example of how he hasn't helped people, right? But when we provided them with things to vote for, then we have an opportunity and we can win this election. And what I've spent my life doing is advancing and expanding access to health care in 9 rural counties in Western North Carolina. Those are red, those are rural, right? But we never once ask anyone who comes into our clinics, are you a Republican, a Democrat, or unaffiliated? The first question we ask them, how can we help you? We expanded access to over 80,000 patients. As they know I'm running, if I got every single one of those 80,000 patients saying thank you for getting us health care out here, I got 80,000 votes. That wins the election. That's how we get this election won. Showing people a reason to vote for us. Thank you.
We're certainly going to do our part in Mitchell County to turn out the vote. As just a plug, at our precinct organizational meetings at the end of the month, we're going to try and get Snow Creek precinct organized to join Grassy Creek, Bakersfield, Cane Creek, and Red Hill. So that should help us get our numbers across. Next question. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm not quite sure how to phrase this, and I'm coming to these things interested and not prepared. My name is Gavenus, graduate student, I think it's so fairly new here, came up from Florida. And I want to wrap a lot of these things that we all care about so much that I keep hearing from everyone. We care about the environment and healthcare and education and all of these. And I want to address one question, I'm not sure how it can be handled, but I want to ask each of you if you could consider some type of legislation to get rid of the dagger that's at the heart of our education and our environment and our medical, and it's creating these concentration camps by getting rid of the freaking privatization of every common good that our government is supposed to handle for us. And capital is wonderful, but unless we have the tools to go after these monsters who are stealing our tax dollars and choking the lifeblood out of all of us, we're not going to get anywhere.
Why don't we go just down the line?
I love that passion. You want to come work for my campaign? Love it. I spent my career, sound like a little bit of a broken record, but spent my entire career about taking private funds out of healthcare, right? Getting rid of private for-profit healthcare. When we have social services that are run by our local nonprofit organizations, it does wonders for us, right? I've proven that. I've shown that, how that makes a difference in Western North Carolina. We can do the same thing. We talked about housing. We get Helene recovery. Rather than be giving it to the developers, we need to develop our nonprofit infrastructure in order for us to build forever affordable housing. This is not a foreign or strange idea. There are places in the United States that have done that already. Montgomery County up in Maryland, Virginia area has a nonprofit entity that helps create forever affordable housing because it's a community owned. And I'm not talking about, housing projects that I grew up with in Chicago, right? These are different. These are community based. Those are the things we need to do. All of these social services that we're talking about, education, healthcare, these should be driven by resource money from the federal government and controlled by the local areas. When you look at, again, comparing community health centers, we have 1,400 community health centers across the United States. You say, when you see one, you've seen only one of them. But there are basic standardizations. But why they're all different, why we're different than the ones up here, is because they're allowed to do what's needed for their community. And that's what makes changes in people's lives. And I've seen, for example, how healthcare can absolutely transform people's lives. Giving people housing can absolutely transform people's lives. Getting people the investments in education can absolutely transform people's lives. Thank you.
So, what are you running for again? Yeah. Yeah. No. So what I heard there was problems, problem, and that's what I'm a research scientist, right? I mean, we are who we are. I'm a hillbilly / research scientist. Hillbillies and research scientists solve problems, So we identify a problem, and then we say, well, that didn't make any sense. How do we fix that problem? And in research science, if your experiment fails, well, you can't just say, oh, well, darn it. I'm not going to know. I guess I won't know that answer. You have to get back up and do it again because nobody else is going to do it. If you don't get there and do the damn thing, then it's just not going to get done. So that's what I do, right? I look at problems. I can analyze them from all sorts of perspectives. And if that means standing in the shoes of a Republican, then I'll stand in the shoes of a Republican. Because you've got to look at all angles to solve the problem. And so these are all solvable problems. They're all solvable. We just have to do it. So and you should run for something.
Yeah, thanks for your passion. Good question. I get it that it's really frustrating too, because when you see this level of corruption in our government, it can light you up and make your blood boil a little bit. So I'm sympathetic to that. To me, what we have to figure out is, as a government, in government bureaucracies, right? I think all organizations, whether they be big businesses or big government bureaucracies, all tends towards over-bureaucratization of process. And so to me, as a small business owner, as somebody who sees bureaucracy start to creep into organizations every day, to me, part of the work of operating these bureaucracies, and part of the reason that so much of this stuff got privatized in the first place was A, for corruption, to enrich friends, but also because they were having trouble solving the problem with the government bureaucracy. And so to me, the opportunity there is to let's learn how to make our bureaucracies much more efficient and operate well and be able to function so that people feel like those bureaucracies are actually working for the people every single day with a great customer service. And so to me, that's good work, that's hard work, that's work that we could all lean into and build upon, because we have to figure this out, right? We have to have systems in place that can help the people every single day. And to me, that's work I look forward to helping with and doing every single day.
We have time for one last question. Yes, sir. Yes, Bruce.
I'm Bruce Grant. I'm a retired crew of Friends Water, Florida. My question basically for all three of you is, kind of go for one of them. I want to know why you are the best choice and what you can do, why you can be the one to actually win in the win.
Whichever order you want.
Thank you. I'm going to repeat the question just in case people didn't hear it in the back. He's asking, why are each of us the best candidate for this job? Fair enough? So, I've worked my whole life in service to others in my career as a physician. As I've explained to you, I have a proven track record around building and growing a business, providing health care, looking to see what the needs are, listening to the communities, collaborating with those communities to get that health care, again, to rural Western North Carolina. That's been my career here over 20 years. I was also a family doctor. I've sat in the exam room with patients, held their hand when I had to deliver bad news about their pregnancy or give them the cancer diagnosis that they had. I have that sense of what it's like to live a challenging moment in each of our lives and have that compassion to make sure these things get done. With that said, I also have that skill set. As I've said, I've balanced budgets of a multi-million-dollar business, inspired people to come work for us, more than hundreds and hundreds of jobs, more than 700 employees now in this organization. But beyond that, it's also about what is our ability to get the tasks done when and if we go to Congress, whichever one of us does that. And I've been advocating, whether it's in Raleigh or on the Hill, in government for a long time. And I know Chuck Edwards. I talked to him for over 10 years to try and get Medicaid expansion in this state, right? And it took him 10 years to finally do it. And then he just about really is threatening that Medicaid expansion here in North Carolina right now. So I know what it's like to be in government and to get and advocate for the things that you need. So thank you so much.
Well, like I said, I'm a hillbilly scientist. In research science, you're told no 90% of the time. You're either the experiment didn't work, your grant's not good enough, your paper's not good enough, and what you have to do is say, instead of throwing a hissy fit, you have to take that in and say, okay, how do I make it better, right? And so you can't just give up. And there's giving up is not an option. And so that's who I am. And I'm going to annoy the hell out of some people up in Washington because I'm not going to give up. And so I believe that there's some really good candidates here, and who aren't here, the other two. And so I don't, I don't proclaim to be some kind of I know everything, but I know how to get the answer, and that's what I bring to the table. So thank you.
So I'm a child of Western North Carolina. I'm fourth generation in the farming background. My family's been here for over 100 years. People in Western North Carolina are, I know so many folks all over Western North Carolina in the agriculture world, in the business community. And one of the things I really feel like part of my job in this campaign is to remind folks that the Democrat Party is the party of working people, and really leaning into this idea that if we have to show up and be the party of the working people, and when you have 10 different messages, you have no message, and the focus of this campaign is going to be on working people issues like getting recovered from Hurricane Helene, like getting life more affordable for everyday people, and like figuring out how to make our government work so people actually feel like the government's working and functioning for them every single day. I've got a history of working bipartisan across the aisle with folks, solving problems. I'm not scared to lean into hard conversations with folks and make friends doing it. And I really think that the ability to win this seat, the math is tough, like you said, and I feel super confident based on all the relationships I've built so far in this region that we can go beat Chuck Edwards in November. And I look forward to getting your support to do it. So thank you.
Let's thank our 11th district candidates that are here again for coming. They've done a great job. Each of them have left campaign material out at the registration desk. Feel free to pick up some on your way out. Work in their campaigns. It's going to be a short little contest from now till March 3rd, but whoever's elected, we certainly will support.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you for all that.
Oh, thanks.
Good seeing you.
Thank you, guys. Great job, yeah.
Thanks all y'all, and thanks, hey, local candidates, stand up. Some local candidates.
They're getting their time.
They're gonna get their time.
Yeah. Okay, next we'll move to our district court judge candidate, Andrew Brooks.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Andy Brooks. I'm the Democratic candidate for district court judge for the 35th Judicial District. This is Watauga, Avery, Mitchell, Yancey, Madison counties. I've been a practicing attorney up here for about 12 years. I live in Boone. A beautiful drive down here. And I think an important thing to think about this race is I don't have a primary candidate, which is great. So my work doesn't, I've got until November. But an important thing to think about this is, what does a district court judge do? That's probably something that not everybody here knows. The district court has jurisdiction over misdemeanor criminal cases, family law cases, so divorce, custody, child custody, spousal support, those types of things, and then domestic Department of Social Services cases. So if the Department of Social Services has to take custody of a child, or if a child has interaction with the Department of Juvenile Justice, these are all the things that are district court jurisdiction cases. And the important thing for us in this room is that most people are not going to be involved in the higher levels of court, hopefully, but just about everybody is going to have some sort of interaction at the district court level with the judiciary. And this is an area where, to me, the biggest impact on the community can be had. My practice as a lawyer has mostly been focused on family law. So that's all the messy and emotionally fraught things that come along with the dissolution of a relationship. That's where most of my practice comes in. And one of the reasons why I think that I'm good at that is because I have a very even temperament, and my goal whenever I'm dealing with any of my clients is how can we make this as painless for you as possible, because it's going to be a hard time no matter what you're doing. And if any time that anybody's involved with the court system, it's going to be a difficult time for them to be there. So how can we make this, how can we decrease, how can we mitigate the problems with it as much as possible? So a little bit about myself, a little bit like Richard, I grew up in the Midwest. I moved to North Carolina, to Western North Carolina in 2005 when I was about 25 years old. I went to college in Ohio. Moved down here in 2005 and absolutely fell in love with it. I've lived in Boone longer than I've lived anywhere in my whole life. And that's by choice. And I went to law school in 2010 at the Charleston School of Law in South Carolina because I wanted to figure out how to make a living and live in Western North Carolina. And that's what I did. Went to law school, came back here, and I've been practicing up in Boone for the last 12 years. Being a district court judge, a friend of mine asked me when I told him I was going to run for this position, said, well, why you? Why would you be good for this? And one of the reasons why I hope that you all vote for me is because I'll be good at it. And that's the short answer. The long answer to that is because it's sort of what I was saying before. My view of the role of judiciary, and specifically with a district court judge, is because it is a role that touches so many lives, it's important for the district court judge to balance the needs of the individual as they come into the court, that criminal defendant who comes in and maybe it's, they got a drug possession charge or they're dealing with a substance abuse problem or some other issue. What are their needs? How can you help them improve their life? How can you help them get the tools that they need to make better choices in their life? And then also, how do you balance that with what are the needs of the community? And how does the community need to apply the laws in order to keep them safe and to make sure that these problems are addressed in productive ways? A little bit to some of the questions about, okay, we have these issues with the prison system. We have these issues with sort of bigger picture governmental issues. And those, in a way, can be addressed at the small level, which is what the district court level is this is the real human level, and that's I'm eager to get into that position. I've been seeing it from one side of the bench for the last dozen years, and I'm looking forward to get to the other side. So I've met some of you here today. I hope to meet the rest of you, and I hope that y'all will come out and vote for me in November and tell your friends. Thank you.
Just as a point of reference, Andy's name will not be on your March ballot. Yes. He is running unopposed, so you will not see his name until November 3rd. So keep his name in mind all through the summer. Any questions for Andy? Last chance. Oh, go ahead.
Which is how much discretion you as the judge would have in determining the sentencing of individuals that are found guilty. And related to that, what I observed just from sort of reading in the news, arrest records and whatnot, is that drug arrests are so prevalent. Like illicit drugs are such a problem in this community. What is your perspective on sort of how to address that at the judicial level to help have a long-term impact on decreasing the prevalence or impact of that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the first part of the question, what level of discretion does the district court judge have in sentencing? There are sentencing guidelines that are produced by the state legislature. They're ranges, and there are different variables that go into those ranges. As far one of them is what is that particular defendant's arrest record, what's their arrest history, what have they been convicted of in the past. Another one of the, and then so that tells you which part of the range that you're going to fall in. And then you also have, in most all of the criminal charges that I, as a district court judge, would be addressing, which again, those are mostly all misdemeanors and then a few of the lower level felonies. They have the option for either a community punishment, which would be a community service type thing, or an intermediate punishment, which could be a mix of maybe some time actually being held in custody, and then also some community probationary punishment, and then just the other end of that spectrum is just the custodial time. And so a district court judge has a good deal of discretion on where to place each defendant in that. To your question about substance abuse and drugs, I mean, that's a huge problem. And then that's a huge problem that stems from a lot of other problems too. I mean, we have just the availability of drugs in the community, and how to address those drugs coming into the community is not as much of something that can be addressed at the district court level. What's happening at the end user state, that's where it's something that can be addressed at the district court level, and finding appropriate punishments for those people to make sure that if they're violent crimes, if they are repeat offenders, that sort of needs to be handled in one way. But then another, if these are just people who are, because a lot of, in my view, a lot of substance abuse, a lot of that problem is also a symptom of poverty. And so being able to have a degree of empathy to where people are coming from with that and saying, okay, well, this person, they have this addiction that is a result of some part of their bad choices, but then also some part of their bad luck. And being able to balance with each person, because everybody's story is a little bit different. And so being able to balance specific needs of that person and also the specific needs of the community as far as keeping them safe from a person if they're a violent, dangerous person. That's what I would hope to bring to that role. But thank you for your question. Yes. We have time.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
I had to take out some questions, but yeah, it's a lot. I had no idea how far we might be this, but that's all I have. In your experience, are there sufficient community resources to be able to help the biggest problem, which is what I'm hearing are drug offenses, and that treatment, that jobs,
Right. No, absolutely not. There definitely aren't. I mean, that's that. I mean, anytime, if you're dealing with a population that is poor, drug addicted people, they aren't going to have a great lobby advocating for their services. So no, we don't really have good enough services. We do, the service providers that we do have for them, in my experience, are very good because they're very dedicated people. They're really right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not something that's going to make you rich. So it's the ones that we have are very good. They absolutely need more support. Yeah. Thank you.
Next question. Anybody else? Well, thank you, Andy.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Eddie.
We'll have you back down.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to come. Thank you all.
Suzanne and Frank, if you'll come on down. I'll just say, I'm not going to introduce them. I'll let them introduce themselves. But for those of you, many of us know Frank by the name Judge. Judge will not be on the ballot. He won't be on the ballot in March, but Frank Hughes will be on the ballot in November. So be sure to make that distinction. Frank, why don't you start?
All right. Well, howdy, everybody. Yeah, thank you, everybody, for coming out and spending your Saturday with us. Appreciate it right here in the middle of a beautiful day we finally got, Yeah, so it's a pretty funny story. Many of y'all do know me as Judge. And apparently, you cannot put, even if your name is a title, you cannot put it on the ballot. So I can't go with Judge if my name had been Senator or Jury. Those wouldn't count either.
nor king or governor. So I had to go with Frank Patton Hughes, which is my name. And so there we are. All right. So please don't forget that. All right. Don't get in there in November and be like, wait a minute, this ain't Judge. It is. So I thought I'd just take a moment and talk, well, a couple of things. One, why I'm really running. And the real reason that I'm running is, most of my life, politics has never really been part of it. My dad was a Methodist minister that's pretty much apolitical. And so I just kind of grew up not really thinking about politics. I got into education. I became a North Carolina teacher, and I love my job. It is what I want to do. I want to teach school. I want to talk history, and I want to play chess for a living, all right? However, my opponent, Ralph Hise, as many of y'all know, because he is from Mitchell County, Ralph Hise has made that increasingly difficult over the decade or more that he's served. As you know, he writes the legislation to remove our tax money from our public school system and give it to private voucher systems, right? And those vouchers have very little oversight. There's very little attention given to private school in North Carolina. If you're not aware, to have a private school, the requirement for staff is that the chief of staff has a background check. There you go. All right. So as long as the person who runs the school has a background check, that's it. If less than 70% of the students receive a full ride on the voucher program, if it's less than 70%, those schools do not have to report their finances to the state. These schools do not have to report their curriculum. They do not have to report a single thing. All right, so basically we're giving money to who knows who to do who knows what with our children. And I do know something for sure, that in public school, it is a great opportunity for so many of our children. Public education gives our children the opportunity not only to get a free education, but it gives them the opportunity to meet people that they wouldn't meet if they were attending private schools. Public education gives our students the ability to experience all kinds of opportunities, whether that be sports, whether that be arts, whether it be music, whether it be literature, whether it be history, who knows what. But they have the opportunity to explore a diverse range of topics in public school. And our investment in our children is an investment in our future. And anyone that divests from our children obviously doesn't care about us or our future. Right before I think Eddie opened the question, he said to the congressional candidates, he said, when you get into office, what committees will you serve on? It made me think, I haven't thought that far. I'm just running. But Ralph Hise, my opponent, chairs the budget committee. Y'all, we don't have a budget. Right? Okay, now here's what happens as a North Carolina public school teacher. I'm required to update my grade book every week. I'm required to take attendance within 15 minutes of my students coming into class. I'm responsible for their safety, whether that be during a fire drill or a lockdown. I must know those protocols. I'm supposed to contact parents at least twice a year, regardless if I have, 50 kids on my roster or 130, which I had a couple of years in a row. I'm also required, to be at school, be present. If I'm out of school, I get to pay for the substitute. And however, Ralph gets to not do his job, which I don't understand. Why has our legislator not passed a budget? But state employees must show up to work, must carry out our responsibilities. It doesn't matter if we don't feel like it, doesn't matter if we're tired, and it doesn't matter if we're waiting on a primary. So I think it's absolutely unresponsible what's going on in Raleigh. It's divesting from our children, and it is making one of the saddest things we see at the school is we encourage children not to become teachers. They will not receive health care in their retirement. They will work long hours for little pay. They are losing benefits. It is costing more money to be a teacher. And if you take two teachers together and they work
they worked for 30 years. At the end of that 30 years, those two individuals will bring home about $86,000. That is not enough money to afford a new home. So you take a beginner teacher. Most beginner teachers live with parents, couch surf. And how do you tell students that want to become teachers that it's a great job? And it breaks my heart, and that's why I'm running for office. All right? So thank you, everybody. And many of you know me. I worked at Dry County Brewing, the first brewery in Mitchell County, right? I served pizza there. I've had a lot of jobs. I've lived across the state, and I've worked in different communities, and I have spent most of my life in Avery County, and I love our mountains. And so I hope that I can be the person for y'all to go down to Raleigh and bring your needs, our desires to Raleigh and be a voice for Western Carolina. And so I would appreciate it if y'all would allow me to do that and encourage your friends and neighbors to vote in November. And thank you very much.
We will let Suzanne give her remarks, and then we'll have questions for both candidates. Just want to say, if you need an additional reason to vote against Ralph Hughes and Dudley Green, they are the two that introduced the bill that changed our local school board elections from nonpartisan to partisan. So now we have a partisan school board.
Thank you. And just to highlight, my name will not be on the ballot either because I'm not in the primary, so I'll be looking for your votes in November. I seem to be the newest one here who has not given a stump speech before, so this is my first one, so I want y'all to support me through this. So I have my cheat sheet with me. But it's so important. I put so much thought and effort into this that I didn't want to miss anything and share my thoughts with you. So my name is Suzanne Gavenus. I'm running to be your next House representative for District 85. As you know, that's Mitchell, Avery, Yancey, and McDowell. I'm stepping up now because I believe that our mountain communities deserve leadership that shows up. I don't know how often Dudley has been up here, but I don't think I've seen him in Yancey County. And not just during election season, not just during a crisis, but every single day we want them to show up. If I'm elected, fun fact, I would be the first woman to serve in this position and the first Democrat. So I'd like to see some progress in this area. I hope you do too. My leadership style listens and fights for everybody. And I plan to do that when you elect me. For more than 30 years, I've lived and worked and called these mountains home right here in Western North Carolina. I am a Democrat. Many people know I'm also married to a Republican who happens to be a judge. Good luck to our judge. He's a Superior Court judge. So that's not really a talking point for me when we talk about going across party lines. It's my real life. It means I know how to work and talk across differences, how to listen without assuming, how to stand firm on my values without tearing communities or families apart. And I know how to fight respectfully, and I plan to fight. My husband and I, with this unique combination, raised a family that is deeply committed to service and community. Our oldest son, Garrett, is an Army veteran who works for the VA, and his wife is in law school, currently in Philadelphia. Our middle son, Noah, and his wife are both active duty Air Force flying planes in Anchorage, Alaska. And our youngest daughter, Gillian, having learned so much here about Hurricane Helene and disaster work, is enrolled in a graduate program at UNC Asheville, their first graduate program in environmental resilience. So woohoo for environmental resilience, because we sure need it. Our family's hopes and dreams are not unlike other families. I believe that most of us want the same things. We want safe communities. We want good schools. Thank you. I love everything that you said. We need affordable housing. We need accessible health care. We need people paid a living wage to put food on the table. We need a sustainable environment that will be here for our future generations, because I would hate to have our children, our grandchildren, and great-grandchildren miss out on what we're living in right now. And we definitely need leaders who will tell the truth. My own story was shaped by service, hard work, and grit. I come from a family of law enforcement, first responders, and working people. When I was in middle school, my beautiful and brilliant mother was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, and my life changed. I dropped out of high school pretty early on, too. I worked in restaurants, earned my GED, and eventually worked my way through community college, state college, and graduate school as a first-generation college student. So again, round of applause to anybody who's doing that or anybody who has children doing that. As a first-generation college student, I didn't know a lot about these systems, but I definitely knew about perseverance and how to navigate systems with no roadmap. From financial aid and student debt, had plenty of it, to healthcare and insurance. I've also lived for about 40 years with type 1 diabetes, so I know about how complicated and costly our medical systems can be. All of these experiences have shaped who I am and, more importantly, how I lead. I've spent my career as a licensed clinical social worker. I'm currently the Director of Counseling and Wellness at the North Carolina School of Science and Math, a counseling supervisor. I've been an educator, a community advocate, and a leader across District 85 in Western North Carolina. I've sat with families when their child was struggling, when they were feeling overwhelmed, when the systems failed them, which they do often. I've supported students navigating trauma and uncertainty, and families with big dreams and too few resources for their children. My approach has always been the same. I listen first, I ask a lot of questions, and then I want to understand what people are facing so we can work towards practical solutions that meet their needs. I've committed my professional and personal life in these mountains to serving our local school systems, universities, community agencies, and boards. I've led teams, I've managed budgets, I've written grants that got money, and responded to crises. I know how government systems are supposed to work, and I know how often they don't. I believe that strong communities are built when we invest in healthcare access, in mental health, in education, in economic stability, especially in rural areas that are far too often overlooked. And right now, our region is at a turning point. Some might even say we're at a breaking point. After surviving the devastation of Hurricane Helene, the decisions that we make next about housing, infrastructure, education, and long-term recovery will shape all of our mountain counties for decades. Too often, those decisions are made far away from the people who live here by leaders who don't show up, don't listen, and don't advocate for us when it matters. Good ideas do not belong to one party, and we know strong communities are built when people are working together, willing to work together, and even when they don't agree on everything. We did that after Helene. We all did. All our neighbors came out and helped one another. I think we know we can do this. It's about fighting for disaster recovery that actually reaches our families, support for families to afford to stay in the communities that they love, for public schools that are supported and fully funded, and for healthcare access and mental health care that's available before crises hit. It's really about accountability and showing up, isn't it? I believe our people are ready for a change. We are tired of the same old lies and party line responses to problems that are growing because our elected officials can't work together, as Frank told us, to solve the problems. North Carolina is the only state in the nation. Like, we're just not a state that didn't solve it. We're the only state in the U.S. that does not have a working budget. This is following a national disaster, the worst national disaster to hit our state, and our elected representatives cannot even work to pass a budget. I'm running because our district deserves a representative who knows us, respects us, and is willing to speak up and fight for all of us, and I am that person. not follow a script from party leaders, which we have seen a lot of folks doing. I will fight even when it's uncomfortable to get things done. And I've seen firsthand how policy decisions made in Raleigh ripple right down into our classrooms, our health clinics, and our kitchens. So I'm going to summarize that this campaign is rooted in some simple beliefs. Everyone deserves access to affordable health care and mental health services. Our educators, thank you for what you do, deserve respect, fair pay, and public schools deserve our support. Working families need affordable housing, child care, and living wages. Disaster recovery must focus on long-term resilience, not short-term fixes, because it feels good in the moment. In rural communities, we deserve to be heard and not overlooked. So please help me send a strong message. Help me fight for our district all the way to Raleigh. I'm ready to fight and deliver our message on your behalf. I'm asking for your trust, I'm asking for your support and your vote, and just as importantly, because we know you've got to talk to everybody, I'm asking for you to have these conversations with your neighbors, your family, and your friends, because I intend to represent everyone in this district with respect, honesty, and hard work. And to do that, we need everyone. So thank you for being here, thank you for listening to me, and thank you for caring about these communities.
Our candidates for the state legislature are excellent. I don't know how many of you were around in the mid-'70s here, but they're cut from the same cloth as Lulabelle Wiseman, who represented this area in the North Carolina House for a number of years. Now, any time for questions? Questions? Yes, Bruce?
Yeah, I guess my question is, obviously, we're going to vote for you guys. I think that's a given. The question is, how do you see, what do you see yourself doing? How do you think you can actually win this race? And what can we do to help you?
Well, it's a long road, right? I mean, like I said, I would be the first Democrat and the first woman in this area. Sometimes when I look at those pictures and I see no representation, either for the children that I work with, definitely not for the women and females that I work with. So it is a long road, but it's like this, it's talking one-on-one, it's talking, I want to get out there and talk to everyone. I think it's great that I'm talking to the people that will vote for me, but please invite me to places where there are people you don't think will vote for me and give me the opportunity to speak to them. I'm tough, but I can sell myself, but I can also talk just in my training and my personality. I just had a conversation I was sharing with the folks I rode over here with the Agers, and I can talk to difficult people, and I think I can do a good job with that, and that's what it's going to take. I have to let them know how I'm going to help them, because I can't just help y'all, because you know what? I don't want the other side to just help the people that vote for them. I want them to help all of us, and I intend to do the same thing. So it's small groups, conversations, one-on-one, and Lord knows that I need to get some marketing out there, so I need to do some fundraising. Everything that I've got right now I've done on my own, but clearly I need to recruit some help and start running this campaign, which I've never done. So I expect to have every one of you helping me in any way that you can. So thank you.
Yeah, so here's what I'll say. I've been the Avery County Democratic Party chair for a few years. I can't give you the exact details. It's been kind of blurry. But what I can say from that experience over there is we have spent a lot of time in Avery County knocking on doors. We've been all over the sticks, as it were. And canvassing and knocking on doors is the number one thing that bridges the gap and that makes people feel heard. And that's the most important thing. As representatives, that is our job, is to represent. And in order to represent, we have to hear from the people in our district. Pretty simple. And we can make phone calls, We can send all kinds of emails. We can send all kinds of postcards. But the number one thing is talking with people face to face. And when we look at the trend from last election, Western Carolina trended blue heavier than any region of North Carolina. So we have some momentum behind us. We have some people who are eager and willing to listen, right? They are looking for a new option. They're looking for something better. And a couple of funny stories real quick with canvassing for anyone who's nervous about it. But one, I was in Boone. I can't remember where I was, but walking around, knocking on doors, and I come up to this one house, and a woman answers the door. She says, "Yeah, what can I do for you?" I said, "Oh, hey, I'm Frank Hughes. I'm running for state senate, and you doing all right?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm doing good." I'm like, "Okay. Well, I'm just curious, what kind of issues are you concerned with?" And she stopped. She looked around. She's like, "Me?" I said, "Yeah, you." And she goes, "Well, nobody's ever asked me what I'm concerned about." I was like, "Well, okay." She goes, "Yeah, give me a couple of minutes to think about it, come up with an answer, But that conversation, there are people out there who have ideas, who have concerns that never get a chance to voice them. And so when we go knock on people's doors, we're giving people an opportunity to voice their concerns. And so we're really, it's somewhat, in a way, canvassing is somewhat of a community good, right? It's beneficial for the people we knock on the doors of. Now, one of the things, if you go canvassing, and I really encourage everyone to give it a shot if you've never done it. You go canvassing, Eddie and the Mitchell County Democratic Party have some fantastic tools provided by the state. And when you knock on a door, you know more about the person whose door you're knocking than they know about you. You know their age, you know their sex, you know their voter registration status, you know their address. You're at their door. So they are obviously, you know more about them. So if you're nervous, you should understand that you know the door you're knocking on, but the people at that home do not know who's knocking on their door. So you may be nervous, but it's your job to make that person feel comfortable. So I encourage everyone to try that. And I have canvassed, y'all have canvassed in Madison, Mitchell, Watauga, Avery County, Ashe County. I've been, I've knocked on all sorts of doors. I walk right past no trespassing signs. And one of my favorite stories is in Watauga County, and someone had a sign that said, "I don't call 911, I shoot." And the young man I was with, he saw that sign. He said, "Oh, what do we do?" I was like, "I don't know. I guess we just go knock on the door and find out." And he was really afraid. And I don't suggest anyone to go past your comfort level, but I will say that I have yet to have any bad. I can't tell you. I have no bad stories to tell you about canvassing, none whatsoever. So I encourage y'all to get out there and knock some doors, and that will, if you really want to know what'll win this election, what'll get Dudley out of Raleigh, what'll get Ralph out of Raleigh, that's it right there, is knocking on doors. Because you won't see Ralph on your doorstep. All right, thank you.
Not only will you not see Ralph on your doorstep, you won't see Dudley Green on your doorstep either. I got a good canvassing story. I went with Caleb Riddell last election, up in Avery County. We were knocking on doors. He taught me a valuable trick. He carried dog biscuits in his pocket. So every time he went up to a house with a dog, he would ask if he could give the dog some biscuits. That broke the ice. So I know some of you don't enjoy canvassing. Personally, I don't either, but I do it. And you actually meet a lot of people, and it's a lot of fun. You get to know who your neighbors are. Any more questions? I have to take off my glasses so I can see you all. One last chance for questions for Suzanne or Frank. Okay, well, let's thank both candidates, and we look forward to seeing them on the ballot in November.
Thanks, everybody.
we'll be seeing a lot more of them and our congressional candidate in the months to come. Well, Jeremy, I guess you're up. Jeremy's doing a great job already. He has already converted at least one Republican that I know of, because I followed the Let's Talk Mitchell County, and there was some political discussion going on about child care in the county, and Jeremy's response got one Republican, because I looked her up on voter search after seeing her response, saying that she was going to vote for him. So I know you've got one Republican vote.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for giving me this chance to be here and talk to you today. I might be the newest person besides Suzanne, so I also brought my stump speech on some paper. Yep. So first, I just want to thank you all for being here today on Valentine's Day. I think that shows a lot of love for this county, and I personally appreciate you coming out here when there's a lot of work to be done. My name is Jeremy Wise, and I'm running to bring a new perspective to the Board of Commissioners here in Mitchell County, because I think they need it. I was born in the Spruce Pine Hospital back when they still had a labor and delivery unit, which we don't have anymore. And I attended Deaton the last year that it was a primary school, went through Mitchell for middle and graduated Mitchell High in 2009. Sorry, Harris for middle, and graduated Mitchell High in 2009. I'm really proud of being from here, and I'm really proud of the public education that I received from here. My family raised me with some mountain values of hard work and self-reliance, and a belief that that work should allow you to lead a dignified life. If you're working steady 40 hours a week, you should be able to, have a steady life. But I've been working since I was a teenager. I started when I was 16 years old. I got my work permit and had my first job here at the KFC Taco Bell in town. And I worked there until I graduated high school and left for Western North Carolina. I wanted to be a music teacher. And that first year, I got to be in the Pride of the Mountains marching band, and that was an incredible experience. That's one of the highlights of my life. If you've never seen them put on a halftime show, it's something to behold. It's, hundreds of people all coming together to make something beautiful. And that's what I think we can do with politics, too. About a year into college, my economic reality set in, and I lost a lot of support from my family at home when I came out as a gay man. And when that support dried up, I got a job and an apartment and left school behind. Most of that time I spent doing third shift maintenance work. So I would go into restaurants after they were closed and clean all of the equipment, reset everything so that it would be set up for the next day. And that's, it's an invisible work that doesn't usually get a lot of respect, but I was not ashamed to do it. I feel like I did everything I was told to do. Like, I feel like I did everything right. I kept my bills paid, and my 20s were still one emergency after the next. I was always one bad electric bill or one flat tire away from an emergency, and I made it through my fair share of emergencies. And it shouldn't be like that. If you're working full-time, then just surviving shouldn't feel like you're walking on a tightrope. My grandfather worked here in the mines for 50 years. He worked at Uniman before it was Uniman, and now it's the quartz company. And that good union job afforded him a life where he could build his own home, and build a family. But for me and my dad and my uncles, he built a life out of that job. And now here I am. And I've worked for almost 20 years, and I just don't have, I'm not making progress the way that he was. If he hadn't built that house, I don't think I could afford to live here today. Even after working full time for 20 years, I don't think this community would be accessible to someone like me. And that's something I want to change, because progress should mean that every generation is standing on stronger ground than the generation they came from. That's really what's pushing me to run. You know, I thought about a lot of different things I could say. I could talk about how much I care about public schools, or I could talk about working in the hospital and about, you know, the cuts that are coming for us there. But really, it's just about being able to build a life with some dignity, and thinking that survival should not be the ceiling for young people in Mitchell County. I refuse to believe that's the best we can do. I'm running because I've worked alongside the people who are not being heard, and I will stand up for them. When working people don't feel heard, they stop participating, and when that participation drops, we Democrats lose elections, and we lose hope after time. So, as a county commissioner, I'm going to approach every vote that I take with a single question. Is this decision going to make working people in Mitchell County more stable, or going to put them on more fragile ground? That's the lens that I want to bring to the table. And I just want to say this. I know that this is an uphill race for somebody like me in such a red county, but the way I see victory is just showing up matters. Just having my name on the ballot and giving people a choice, that's a victory already. Just being here today and talking to you, that's a victory for me. Participation is the most important thing. So whether my campaign ends in November or not, as long as we're building stronger voices for working families in Mitchell County, then I've succeeded. Every time someone chooses to show up instead of sit out, the county gets stronger, and that's something we can build together. Thank you.
We're so fortunate to have Jeremy on the ballot in November. Any questions for Jeremy? Last chance for a question for Jeremy. Well, with that, thank you so much for coming. Keep February 28th, March 28th on your calendars for the precinct organizational meetings and the county convention, and we'll see you down the road.